G'day guys, welcome back to the Fond Supercoach YouTube channel. Today we will be reviewing the whole of 2025 AFL Supercoach as well as round 24 just briefly at the start. So yeah, let's get into it. But before we do so, I just want to say thank you to all the viewers, subscribers, likers and commenters this year. I appreciate each and every one of you so much. Really grateful for all the support. Yeah, it's been a good year. We're almost at 200 subscribers, so I think we'll tick over that early in the preseason next year, which I'm really looking forward to. And yeah, thank you so much. As I said, thank you for your support. Just quickly before we get into it, there will be no finals content from me. It's kind of weird. It's a new team every week, so it's essentially just like picking players against the teams that allow like halfbacks to score, for example, or general forwards, that sort of stuff. So to me, it's not very interesting because there's no trades. But yeah, let's get into the review. So moving on here. Round 24, this is how we went. Scored 2,538, which meant we finished down 19 ranks at season rank of 431, which is my best finish ever by about 30 or 40 ranks, I believe. So pretty excited for that. Always aiming for the number one rank, but there can only be one of those out of 200 odd thousand. So not overly disappointed. Next year's my year though. I'm just getting in early there. But yeah, and then in round 24, at the start of the round, I thought I'd be in for a good one because the Gold Coast boys, Anderson and Rao, that have been killing me all year, and Grundy all had poor weeks. I think a lot would have had the captaincy on Grundy as well against West Coast. And then Sunday happened and I had Nas stinker, Zorko stinker, Sarong and Brayshaw stinker, Darcy super stinker. And like, yeah, it just all went downhill. But that's okay. It is what it is. I think Nas got a fair bit of attention at times during the game, but also had a quad strain later on. And to be honest, like the Giants are a tough matchup for halfbacks anyway. I know Nas played a fair bit on ball still, but it's all right. He can have a bad game. He's only averaged 115 this year. The bloke's an absolute freak. And then Sinclair 136. I did say it was a hard matchup for halfbacks, but it wasn't for Sinclair who got it done. And then Whitfield 176. I'm kind of kicking myself. I didn't even think about captaining Whitfield. Probably wouldn't have mattered in the end. I would have taken Gorn anyway, or Butters, who I moved the vice captaincy off, but we'll get to him later. Halfbacks against the Saints have always scored well. Whitfield can go big. Scored about like 80 points in the last quarter, which was pretty crazy. So yeah, he was really good. McKercher 78 against the Crows. I thought he would go a little bit better, given that Adelaide tend to give up to halfbacks, but it is what it is. North were kind of in that game a little bit more than I anticipated, and I guess McKercher had some clangers early, so yeah, that's part of the reason for his poorer score. And then Dale 71 hurt his wrist and was generally pretty poor. It was one of Dale's worst games, I thought, for the year. Not just about Supercoach scoring, but had a lot of turnovers, had some really poor defending. So pretty sad about that. And then Zorko 79. Had some shocking clangers. Zorko does some really nice things by foot, and then sometimes he has some shocking clangers, and when he doesn't have enough of the ball, because Wilmot and Fletcher had a heap of it, he scores poorly, so it is what it is. And then Bont, 144, he was excellent. I'm actually surprised this is only 144. Felt like he was doing absolutely everything he could to get the Dogs over the line. He's such a tremendous player, and it's really sad that we don't get to see Marcus Bontempelli in finals. He's such a terrific player. So looking forward to what he has in store next year. Dacos 91 against the D's, and Dacos didn't get any attention. So this is a little bit weird. He was going very well at halftime, but he fell off the cliff, which was unfortunately not enough for my Demons to get it done. Another close loss to Collingwood eats away at my soul. But hey, new coach next season. They keep telling us they're going to go away and learn how to win. So looking forward to a Demons 2026 campaign. I know I'm meant to be talking about Nick Dacos, but there's not really much to say there. And then Dawson 105 started really well like Dacos, but yeah, just sort of faded out of the game. And then Zach Butters, I knew he would get up against the Suns. I knew he would get up for Kenny's last game. And yeah, took the VC off him, cost me 54 points, which probably ended up being close to 50 ranks in the end of it. So kicking myself for that, but you don't get any extra prizes for finishing 380th instead of 431st. So at the end of the day, it doesn't really matter, but would have been nice to stick fat with that. I took the VC off him and onto Gorn about 5 minutes before the Melbourne-Collingwood game started. But yeah, that was not my best decision. But hey, it is what it is. Also, I don't know if anyone's going to mention this, but I actually really like Ken Hinkley. I think he's quite good for football in general. He loves the theatre of it and he gets stuck into all that stuff. So hopefully, for my sake, he's not out of the game for too long. But yeah, shout out to Ken Hinkley on his last game with the Power. Tom Green, 104 against the Saints. Would have liked a little bit more from him, but I don't know. I was watching this game with the scores and he wasn't scoring great, but he was going okay. And then I came back and he'd had 8 more possessions, but he'd had 4 clangers. So his score hadn't moved. So yeah, that was frustrating. But that's the Tom Green experience. Sometimes he clangs it up and it's a bit of a disaster. Got a lucky go ahead or extend the lead goal in the fourth quarter to, I think that netted him 28 points. So that was very, very nice. And then Brayshaw and Sarong. I think these guys are going to... I don't have the numbers to back this up, but I think when Hayden Young plays, these guys are going to struggle to score. I don't even know what Hayden Young scored, but he's clearly their best player in my opinion. It's him and Jackson. But yeah, he was very good. And unfortunately, the Freo boys weren't able to score. I was hoping that I'd get a big score out of Sarong this week because he's normally quite good against the Dogs. Wasn't meant to be. And then LDU 119 against the Crows. Chera to LDU's been a pretty good trade-in by the end of it. Probably, I think I've got an average of about 125-ish across those very small 3 games. So yes, absolutely stoked with that. Yeah, great trade, I guess. We'll get to my trades later. It's not in one of them, but only 3 weeks. What can you do? And then Vice Captain Gawn, who was very, very good against Cameron. What an absolute player Max Gawn is. It would have been good if he was a triple premiership captain, but he's currently not. There's still time, obviously. Probably won't be starting the big fella next year. Unless the fixture is really good, then I might consider it. But yeah, what an absolute player. If he's not your AA captain, you're doing something wrong. Yes, I'm flying the flag as a supporter, but hey, it is what it is. Marshall 122 against Briggs. He was very good. Briggs is easy to score against, so not too unexpected. The Cats, who did the Cats play? They played Richmond and Baz went 129 against them. I didn't watch a minute of that game, I'll be honest. So I didn't want to have to watch that game from behind the couch with potentially Holmes and Cameron killing me. I think Holmes didn't go that well, but Cameron did go 120 odds. So yeah, that is what it is. And then Phil Thorpe 115 against North, as expected. North can't defend. The key forwards feed on North, so he's been a really good own, to be honest. Only had the one stinker that was the 23rd score 1 week, I believe. So didn't even get that. Ranking captain, just because it was convenient, not suggesting anything there, guys. Darcy, 55, was really well beaten by Alex Pearce. He did an excellent job on him, did Alex Pearce. And yeah, just couldn't score. The Dogs had some sustained periods of struggling to score before the fourth quarter, really, where they were trying to come back and, Bont and Fraser were trying to bring them over the line. And they were good early in the first as well. But yeah, I don't know if I'll start Sam Darcy next year, but I think you're probably paying about fair value. But he's definitely going to be an interesting selection over the rest of his career. Caleb Daniels, 75 against Adelaide, somehow lasted the whole season playing every game and playing at halfback for 99% of the year. Don't ask me how. I'm not the coach. Ask him. But hey, it's good. It's been good for me because I wasted a lot of trades. We'll get to that later. But yeah, Caleb Daniel, 75 against the Crows is what it is. Petrarca, 104. Thought that was one of Track's best games. In a little bit of a different role, obviously, so the ceiling isn't there, but thought he played pretty well and was pretty happy with a 104. And then Rosie to finish it off, 124 for Kenny in his last game. Same with Butters, was always going to get up for it. So, yeah, stoked with that. Let's get into the 2025 season review. I don't know what the go is with these animations, by the way. Okay, it's going to work like this. Okay, so we'll start with Flex. Flex was really good. I love this change. Reduces a lot of the rookie roulette, which there is an element of skill too, and the skill still exists because you're still doing it, but it feels like it removes a lot of the like really bad sub scores that you are prone to get with the sub. Although the sub is apparently going to leave next year, so we will see if the flex score stays. But also the injuries early, like I had some very poor Tom Stewart scores, some other rookie scores, etc. So I really like the flex. I don't think it subtracts from the skill as much as I originally thought it would by eliminating rookie roulette a little bit. I think it's actually just right. And I'm actually really, really, really happy with the flex. I think that was a really awesome change. So much better than the extra trades that we keep getting given, in my opinion. But I understand why the extra trades are there. It's to keep people engaged. More trades led to more aggressive trade strategies, not just for me, but in general. I think a lot of players started a lot of these 400 to 500k defenders and midfielders in particular. I think your Roberts, Shorts, Cheras, Olivers, and Perryman. I think the overarching rule with that is more to do with like starting those players isn't inherently wrong. It's just about assessing why or why not we should do those things. When I talk about my starting team, I'll talk about a lot of those because I started all of them. And yeah, so I have a lot of scope to talk about them, but I don't necessarily think these aggressive trade strategies are bad. But one of the learnings for me this year is having those trades. Like if I had 3 or 4 extra trades this year, I think that would have made a huge difference to me in the run home. I would have been able to offload TDK and Chera earlier. Like I would have been able to get onto Grundy. So yeah, some huge like opportunity available if you have enough trades. So for me, I'm probably, again, it's not a change in strategy. It's just some extra analysis on the players. And as I said before, we'll get to that in a second. Yeah, here we are. First few weeks were pretty difficult to navigate. There were a few injuries. I know some foolish people like myself had Tom Stewart, who I still think was a good starting pick. We'll talk about that later. But yeah, he made it very difficult. There was some really strange rookie roulette. Sam Powell-Pepper scored 18 in round 1. There was all sorts of other things. Elijah Hewitt, like randomly injured. There was a few injuries as well, like Sam DeConing, if you had him. Just all sorts of things that were going on early. So I do think after that, the season was actually quite straightforward. There wasn't a stack of injuries after that. Like the only ones I can think of are like Chera, the Cherry suspension. Like there have been years where there's been carnage towards the end of the year, and those years feel way harder to navigate than the years where the carnage happens all at the start. So I did think that was interesting. At the start of the year, I thought the year was very difficult, but as it went on, I was feeling it was a lot easier, or was getting easier. A lot of the popular mid-pricer options in defence and the midfield failed. So by that, I mean Clary, Roberts, Perryman, and Sam DeConing, Short. I wouldn't say that Chera... I have Roberts there. I don't know if Roberts really failed. I feel like Roberts was okay. I think if you'd started a Nasiah or a Holmes instead of a Roberts, you would have been pretty happy. But I don't think Roberts was too bad. Chera, I still think was quite good if you got off of him at the right time as well. So I haven't included him as a failed pick. But yeah, there were a lot of these awkward mid and defender cheaper options that did fail. I'm trying to think of some other ones as well. Like, I don't know if people started Jai Newcomb, Lloyd Meek. So a lot of these not strange, but these mid prices that were popular did tend to fail, and a lot of them were in our defense. So I started all of Roberts, Perryman, Short, and Sam DeConing, and as I said, Roberts was okay, but the rest of them were terrible. And that's really problematic when they are your D1 to 5 with Tom Stewart. So as I said, we'll get into that in a second. What else do I have here? Okay, patience with... Okay, sorry, it's amateur hour with the animations. Anyway, patience with picks was tested. So things like Cherry. When Cherry did that niggle hamstring type injury, were you going to trade? Were you going to hold? I think Holding was correct, even though you got 3 weeks of pretty poor scoring by Cherry's standards. Trading him out and then trading him in, I don't think would have been worth the points. It was very fortunate if you were a non-owner like myself. But yeah, I think that was pretty, I think he was okay to hold. I've got Chera here. It was very, it looked like a good idea to move Chera on earlier. So I think if he got off Chera just after his bye, a couple rounds, it was a really good play. But I think people were keen to get off him in round 10 or 11 because he had that first bye and people wanted to upgrade and etc. So getting off Chera, I've also made a typo here, but I guess the patience with Chera was important. And then the next point, the timing of picks was really important with Chera as well, getting off him at the right time because his scoring just fell off a cliff and then he got injured. So you don't want those types in your team. I've also got Elijah Hewitt. So holding Elijah Hewitt through the first little speed bump was something that I did not do, and it really hurt me. It cost me a couple of trades in 150k of cash. That would have made a huge difference to me. It was probably my worst trade out, trading Elijah Hewitt. I just thought that he was made of glass and he wouldn't get going, but I think the learning there is with picks that, with draftees that are talented, a couple of years in the system, they're high picks, and particularly with clubs that are on their knees like West Coast was this season, just holding these guys makes a lot of sense. And then the patience with Rao to not trade him after he's a couple of stinkers in the middle of the year and then getting on him either after he stopped doing those. Like, you could have got on Rao for 485 and he averaged nearly 120 plus for the rest of the year. I don't have the exact number with me, but he was really good for the rest of the year. And then Tom Stewart, patience was tested with him. I think this is probably relatively Stewart specific, but for players with injury history that is very inconsistent is probably the word I'm going to use. Stewart's done this before where it's really hard to pick how long he's injured for. So I think just jumping off of him when that injury happens in future is correct, instead of watching him play through it and just be an absolute shell of himself. So I think that was a learning for me. Also worth noting that Geelong is really hard to read with injuries. So starting injury-prone Geelong types is very difficult. For Baz next year, if Baz is going to average 115, he's still going to pick him. He was laid out a couple of times and that sort of thing. So I don't know. We'll see. That's very Geelong relevant, I would suggest, but it is worth taking those learnings into next season anyway. So here we go. My season, just a very brief overview before we get into some trades. So as we said before, finished 431st, but to dive into that further, so I had a captain's average of 144.46 and only 2 captain scores under 120. So that could have been a little bit higher if I went Butters, would have pushed me close to 150. That is an absolutely massive captain score average. It's one of the highest that I've seen. I have seen a few higher ones, but it's definitely the highest I've ever had. I don't have the other numbers, but I know that for a fact. So yeah, absolutely nailed my captains this year and was really wrapped to that. The 2 scores I had under 120 were a Petrarca 78 in round 2 and I think a 110 at some point. So only one of those scores an absolute disaster. So yeah, did really well with the captains this year. Fielded at least 18 or 22 players every week. It makes a huge difference at the end of the season if you can't field at least 22. And by the end of the season, I was fielding premiums or McCarthy every week. It was essentially a premium. So did really well on that. I know in years gone by, I have run out of trades early. One of my big things was to be able to not field donuts at the end of the year, because that's how you stay competitive, by fielding full teams. And fortunately for me, I did not. So 3 top 1% round scores. There's no context to that. Didn't have any massive weeks like a couple of years ago, or last year maybe, I finished 3rd in a round rank. So not a heap of massive scores, but some solid rounds anyway. And then held Tom Stewart to round 7. Still really upset about that. He's on the next slide as well, so buckle up for that. But I do feel like this hamstrung me. This probably cost me 200 to 300 points, I would suggest, which that's a massive difference. I was about 1,000 behind first in the end, I believe. So having 300 points from one pick, like we'll get into some other ones as well, just an absolute disaster. And then missed a couple of key rookies, but nailed most of them. So the ones I missed were Murphy Reed and Connor O'Sullivan. They weren't massively owned, but I think a lot of the competitive players had one or the other. The other one who sort of flew under the radar because he was sub in the first game, then dropped, is Harvey Langford, who is he's my favourite player already, I think. But he went absolutely gangbusters. And I think if I was more composed with my trades earlier on in the season, I would have been able to get Langford, who would have been a massive point of difference. He was pumping out good scores and heaps of cash at the points in the season when you needed it. So, they were the main ones. But I did hit a lot of good ones. So Sam Powell-Pepper, Nathan O'Driscoll, who only made 100k in the end, but was giving you good scores. Zach Reed, Jackson Pryor, who did jump off a little bit early. So did really well with rookies. So this is my starting team. If you want to compare this to the end of the season, I did not hold one defender for the whole season. That is absolutely diabolical. I don't think anyone needs to be told that. As you can see, Stewart, Short, Roberts, Perryman, Sam de Koning. Like, obviously you trade out the rookies. And the rookies I did, like, those were good rookies in the end of it. But, so Stewart, I still maintain Stewart was a good pick. So he was value. He has scoring potential to go 105 to 110, which we did see in the back end this year when he was, like, the last few weeks he was getting going and he was going really well. Obviously some easier matchups, but the ball wasn't in his back line a lot of the time in those matchups as well. So I am not suggesting that Stewart was a bad starting pick, more that I had to get off of him earlier. So I still think that was a pass, but like Short and Perryman, like Short, we've seen this so much with before. He gets injured. He doesn't have the scoring capacity to really hurt you if you don't own him. Like, why would you pick him? So I think for guys in the Jaden Short age bracket, like just being on a bad team isn't enough particularly for defenders, it's not enough to pump your score up enough to, score well. I think the fear with Short, why did I pick all of these guys? The concern was not enough good rookies. So the only one I missed was Connor O'Sullivan, is what it is. But having that extra slot would have made a huge difference. I probably don't have to start Sam de Koning then, or Perryman or Short. I can't remember which one I was the least keen on. I think it was Perryman, but his role looks so good in opening round that I just picked him anyway. I guess the learning with Perryman as well is we have so much history of Perryman not only playing midfield but also playing defense and just being unable to score that well. So I was probably lulled into that one a little bit, sucked in, I should say, by an opening round score. I'm probably going to stick fat with those in the future. Like, the role was good, but I think also with Collingwood's very system-based. So we saw that with Houston as well, who I think is going to be an interesting pick next year because I just can't see him being as bad as he was this year. But I think players in Collingwood's system in their first year haven't really thrived, which is, again, a good learning to take into next year. It's very specific, but I do think that the injury history plus the lack of scoring power that we've seen from Perryman in the past was enough to suggest that he wasn't a good starting pick, even though he had a good role. I think, again, starting Connor O'Sullivan over him would have shored up other lines a lot more. I probably don't have to start a Lucas Campriali then, which he was a dead rookie for most players for a lot of the year. And not having him, like, the only other bad rookie in this starting team, or the only other bad ones I should say, are Sardis, Nevitt, and O'Sullivan. Obviously, Garcia didn't pan out either, but yeah, Sardis, Nevitt, and O'Sullivan, like, being able to avoid one of these four rookies would have been huge, would have saved a trade, and would have essentially, I would have had Connor O'Sullivan's cash gen then. Like, that would have been amazing. So even like starting a Holmes who, like, this is the thing, like I decided not to start Holmes because of the hamstring injury history and the lack of trust in the role. And I just blindly went into Perryman and did the same thing. Like, it just makes, the logic is absolutely baffling to me. And I don't know why I would do that. But I guess sometimes I should take a step back and think about these things on that sort of level. I'm starting Perryman for these because he's got the role, different club, etc. I guess Holmes was 100k more, but Holmes averaged 115. Like, Holmes was clearly talented. But yeah. And the other one was Nazaya, who I think saying that Nazaya should have been started is a little bit hindsight. Couldn't have seen his mid-season explosion playing midfield coming. No, not one person could have seen that. But I think the way that the Saints played, plus natural development, which is really hard to pick, I might add, it would have just been much nicer than having, Short or Perryman, obviously, or De Koning. The other one is Jordan Clark, who I think went 105. So I can actually confirm if he went 105. Give me 1 second. Jordan Clark, where are you? This guy should be all Australian, by the way. If he's not, it's an absolute rort. Yeah, so he went 105 on the dot, Jordan Clark. And if you did, you would have paid 560. So that's, in my opinion, that's a successful starting pick. It also anchors your backline a little bit more. As I said, I traded out every single one of these picks. So, yeah, he would have been nice. And then, yeah, Sam De Koning. I said this in my round 1 review. I did not want to start this pick. It was just, that was the cash that I had left. And he was popular enough that I was a little bit defended by ownership. I got a good score in the end. I traded him out in round 2 because he got banged up. But yeah, so that was a little bit tough. I do think that in the midfield, I made a lot of good picks. Obviously, Petrarca didn't work out. I still I could not have imagined that he would have played forward that much at the start of the season, particularly when Melbourne was struggling. So I'm willing to concede that was okay. However, I think when a guy has an injury like that, whose ball use isn't that good in the first place, it's a hard sell to start. And even though he looked really good in that preseason game, like you could not have detected anything was wrong with him. His kicking was good. So yeah, I don't know. Maybe like the red flag should have outweighed the green flags, even though the player was looking good in the preseason. Obviously, Brayshaw was an excellent starting pick. Dawson, I'm giving myself a pat on the back for as well. Oliver probably didn't quite have the fitness, but the ownership was so high that you just had to pick Oliver. It didn't work out for everyone in the end of it. So, yeah, that is kind of what it is. And then Chera, De Koning, again, I think these were good picks. Just had to get off Chera and De Koning at the right time. De Koning did have an injury for the back half of the year to his throat, so he does get a little bit of a pass. If Marshall isn't at St Kilda next year, I will start De Koning again. I'm just going to be completely upfront with you. He has the scoring power. And then obviously in the forward line, like these 4 and the rookies were a really big success. The only miss was Hugo Garcia. I can't actually remember if there was a better forward rookie. Give me 1 second. Not really. There wasn't another forward rookie who went gangbusters because Murphy Reed and Langford were both mid only. But yeah, so obviously the one that I didn't start here that I probably should have started was Xavier Lindsay. I should have had him over Finn O'Sullivan. Ashcroft, I'm okay with having what happened. I would have just gone Sardis to Ashcroft if I had Lindsay instead. Here, it is what it is. O'Sullivan's a great talent, just like strange role, young kid at the start of the year. It's tough. Like these seasoned bodies, like if you look at the defenders, the rookies that we had this year, like the only first year plays, there was 1, 2, 3 like 18, 19-year-old types. Like everyone else had multiple years in the system or mature age in the case of Davidson and Hall. So those are the types of rookies that you're going to get good scoring from. The one that was successful, obviously there was Reed, who you should be able to build your team well enough that you can trade into those guys if you miss them. And then Trainer, who had a really good role. So what's the learning with that is favour the mature body guys over the newer guys, particularly this year with a weak draft. So guys like your Jagger Smith, your Josh Smiley, you're going to want those guys in your starting team. All right, where's my next point? Oh, yeah, so these are my best picks. Brayshaw, Dawson, and Sam Powell-Pepper. Also just holding Sam Powell-Pepper after this 18. The bald goat got to 400k. Like, that's 220k from a single rookie, as well as many tons. I didn't field a lot of them, but he was unbelievable. Went on an unreal 5-week patch. So he was an awesome pick. I've spoken about Connor O'Sullivan and Murphy Reed. Would have been nice to be able to get onto at least one of them. I'm giving myself a pass for not going Connor O'Sullivan. O'Sullivan was really benefited by this Tom Stewart injury, which obviously I held Stewart for 7 rounds. I was going to bet against that being a recurring thing. And then also the terrible Geelong injury reporting. So Colin Jasny, who I'm not even sure played a single game this year in the end of it, was meant to be back by round 3. So that's when O'Sullivan would have had his price rise, and then starting a more expensive rookie and not getting a price rise. It's a little bit of a disaster. So I'm giving myself a pass for no O'Sullivan, but yeah, look, it's not ideal. Would have liked to have gotten onto him. R3 loop, so Boyd only playing the 2 games. Probably should have seen that coming. Worst case, if it looked like he was going really well, a correction trade would have been nice. The awkwardness with the R3 loop is that there were no basement price ruck forwards. But I think next year it's actually worth spending that extra 20k to get that ruck forward loop. So the 350 to 500k players, I think I've spoken about this a lot with Oliver, Chera, Short, Roberts, De Koning, and Perryman. Like, you have to, I think if you're getting a player in this range, they have to be a premium to really hurt you. And if they're not going to hurt you, you don't need them. Like, you just don't need them. I know the other ones that people had were Finn Callaghan and Will Ashcroft. I think Finn Callaghan, if he hadn't got injured, would actually have been a really good pick. Particularly at the back end of this year, he had some massive scores and it was really good. I think he's also the man in the Giants midfield now. He seems to be their prime mover. It's not Ash and Whitfield. It is actually Callaghan who does the damage up the ground. So he's definitely very interesting. And then Ashcroft, I think he threw in a stinker in round 1, but he's just a pig, man. Like he just gets ball. I don't know what else to say. He was really good. I still think that starting a guy at that price like Ashcroft that early in his career, like, I'm okay with not doing that. And Ashcroft, as I said with Chera, didn't hurt me. He wasn't a premium in the end. So that's my general thoughts on those guys, particularly those 450k guys. To hurt you, they must be a premium. They must be. Even Chera, who I thought was a successful pick if you jumped off at the right time, he didn't kill you if you didn't have him. So it's definitely worth noting that. Obviously, they're good for structure at times, but it's just, they don't hurt you. And then rookies, everyone had Sardis Nevitt, a lot had O'Sullivan, a lot had Cambriali. I don't know why. I think the level of hype that gets built up over Carlton rookies needs to be studied. They always get overhyped, and they just don't deliver. There was Jack Carroll last year who I started as well. A game time decision like Cambriali, just a disaster, absolute disaster. So. I don't know. That's just a strange tangent, I guess. But anyway, trades. So what good trades do they have this year? We'll start with the good and then we'll get to the bad. So Ryan Marriage instead of Bailey Humphrey in round 4. I think I don't need to discuss the damage that not doing that trade would do, or picking Humphrey instead. There's no doubt that Humphrey is a more talented player than Ryan Marriage, but role is king in fantasy football, and Ryan Marriage taking kick-ins in the worst side in my memory, to be honest, this West Coast team. He was a no-brainer at 230 odd K. And then Humphrey, just the mid-split wasn't good enough. That simple. He scored well in some Gold Coast wins, but Gold Coast had some really soft fixtures early. So that was, I guess, something that I had taken from previous years, but a good learning for people who went Humphrey over Marriage. What's next? Trading in Joe Fonte early in round 9. Some may view this as lucky, but for me, Fonte played last year. I liked what I saw from him. He takes the game on. He's a good size. So that's why I went early on Fonte after a good score. Obviously, I wouldn't have done it after a bad score, but I think just backing in the prior experience, particularly when they've gone well previously, would have started the season if not for suspension, and then they have another year in the system, right? So yeah, I don't know. I thought Fonte was a no-brainer, and going early was okay. So trading in Colby McKercher for 393k in round 14. McKercher at halfback is really good. Obviously has some learning to do, has some very bad kicks at times, but he's in his he's 19 years old or something. You're not begrudging a 19-year-old for that. And definitely a guy who I'm looking to start next year, provided that Clarko doesn't move him to the wing again. Clarko, do not move him to the wing. He is not a wingman. He's a halfback. Let him flourish there, for God's sake. Obviously, Alistair Clarkson is a viewer of the channel. And then trading in Nas in round 15 for 528k. Some may say that was too late. I would not. He went absolutely nuts after round 15, including dunking on my own team. So thank you for that, Nazaya. What a star. So glad he stayed at St Kilda, by the way. Great for footy. Have I got anything else down here? I do. Trading out Gawn in round 15 for 678k and bringing him back in 4 weeks later for 574. Now, this does look like 2 trades, but it's also 100k. And I really needed that 100k in round 15. So I think this was a really good trade. He had the high break even. Obviously, I wouldn't have traded him back in if Cherry didn't get suspended. Although I may have ended up doing so for TDK anyway at some point. I don't know. But that was a very good way of making 100k. I think when guys have high break evens and bad matchups and they're that highly priced, if you need to generate cash, I think that's a really good creative way of doing so. So it's not a move that I'd ever done before or even entertained, but one that I will going forward, particularly in years where cash gen dries up in the middle of the year. All right, bad trades. Let's get into the fun stuff. So I'm just realizing that my head is over this, so I'm going to talk through these as much as possible. Elijah Hewitt in round 4, absolute disaster, cost me 150k. And essentially 2 trades because I brought in Clay Hall. I think it was Clay Hall. Anyway, I brought in a dead rookie essentially who I traded out after 1 price rise. So that was a disaster. I spoke about this before. You got to back in the guys who've been in the system for a while and are highly talented. Obviously, he was giving good on-field scores as well. Trading in Dane Zorko before round 3. If you were like me and you did that for 600k, you got an average of 99.29. Now, there was a little bit of unluckiness here with Fletcher moving to halfback and really playing well there. It is worth noting that at this time, Kadeem Coleman was due back in round 5, but Zorko did have a good matchups, a good bunch of matchups. I think the learning here, and I think I was sucked into this because I had no good defenders. But why would you trade in? So first of all, don't trade in players who are over 600k unless they can really cane you. Zorko going 140 in defense, he's not going to do that every week, even if he does it 2-3 weeks in a row. People aren't captaining him, that sort of thing. It's the Bonds, the Gawns, the Cherries that if you're going to pay for guys that price, they're you guys. The guys who can go on runs of 160 plus captains just caning people. So yeah, and then Zorko's 36 years old. Like, he could have very easily have got injured. He did get banged up. I think he is banged up playing with a syndesmosis injury. Syndesmosis? Liz Frank at the moment. So yeah, just an absolute no-no trading in a 36-year-old for 600k. Unless he's Max Gawn, which I will do when Gawn is 36. Traded out Levi Ashcroft in round 8 before a good run of games. Cost me about 60k and a few rookie roulette points. This is the type of trade that I think a lot of people wouldn't view as being that bad because the cash downside wasn't that much, but having him for those scores is what I'm concerned about. You know, if it's 20 points a week and it's 4 weeks, that's 80 points you've just lost by not holding a guy. So I think for me, I was very hastily upgrading, which caused me to burn a lot of trades over aggressively. So definitely a learning for me around patience this year in Supercoach 2025. Moving on to the next one, James Sicily in round 8. Did get 2 good scores, got 115 average in the first 2 weeks. But yeah, why would you trade in a guy who looks like he's injured and is in terrible form? Just a no-brainer, poor decision from me. And then I believe Tom Stewart is the next one until round 7. I've spoken about Tom to death. Just had to get off after round 2, sorry. And then Toby Green. I don't know if anyone was viewing for the whole season, but I traded in Toby Green in round 12, and I think I traded him out in round 13. No, round 14. So I held him for 2 games. I don't think that needs any commentary. That was obviously silly. That was a desperate cash play that was never going to work. Again, this is the patience for me was the big learning this year. So, but yeah, and then Sarong over Rao in round 12. I was looking for a player here. Everyone had the buy. Rao was right in front of me, 248 points. I lost by not going Rao instead of Sarong, and 40k, which would have made a difference for me in the back end. There is another one here. I delayed Noah Anderson for what I thought was a bad fixture, and meant that I couldn't get a hold of him. I did get Tom Green instead, but I think Anderson put about 8 points per week on Tom Green from that point onwards. So that is what it is. Do I have one more bad trade? I do. Trading out JHF over McRae. I'm not convinced this was an actual bad trade, but it did end up costing me a lot of points. I was meant to have the calculation here. It was, because of the number of games extra that McRae played, it was a fair bit more, but McRae had some really poor games in there as well. So I don't think it was as diabolical trading out Horn-Francis over McRae as it was looking originally, particularly this week. I don't play for leagues, so it didn't matter to me, but if you traded out Horn-Francis over McRae, you would probably have had someone playing this week instead of McRae, who was the sub. All right, let's keep going. Early 2026 thoughts. This will be pretty brief, I would imagine, but just some guys I'm really interested in and some general thoughts. So, flex and opening round. Guns and rookies is definitely defended. So, rookies tend to score worse than mid-prices, but when less of them are counting on your field, rookies are better because they tend to make more cash as well. I don't think I don't subscribe to the guns and rookies is better than mid-price camp. I think that's a destructive way to view the game. I think you just pick the best players at the end of the day, and sometimes they're rookies. Mid-prices are often very enticing, but yeah, I think just having more faith in rookies. Obviously, we had a really strong crop this year, and we're not going to next year. But being able to pick out the diamonds in the rough, particularly the ones that look like they're going to be playing early, given the sub rule looks like it's going to go. All right, what else have we got here? So, extreme value in defense. So, Sicily, Stewart, yes, I may go there again. Colby McKercher, Sam Banks from Richmond, if people aren't familiar with him. Jasper Fletcher and Kadeen Coleman at Brisbane. These guys all look like they are capable of premium scoring. Sicily obviously injured early in poor form. Tom Stewart injury affected. McKercher early terrible role. Banks natural progression. I'm going to do a deep dive into natural progression for halfback flankers in this off season because I think it is. I have a feeling it's predictable. I can't prove that yet, but I have a feeling it is predictable. Just referring to like Ash and Bowie this year. And then Fletcher and Coleman, obviously, if Zorko's role changes or if he gets injured, he's an old man after all. Not hoping he gets injured, but it is, when you get to that age, it is within the realm of possibility. But yeah, these guys could be very enticing. Coleman will be under 180k, I think, so he'll be a must start. In the midfield, so I think Richards, Dacos, LDU, Sarong Callahan, and Hayden Young will be my first picked, I think. But I think all those guys are going to be priced at below what they're capable of. I think Richards with another preseason in the midfield is going to be a scary, scary prospect, man. He was Champion Data's number 1 rated player in the comp this year, or maybe number 2 now. I don't know. Him and Bont were 1 and 2 either way. And to be in Bont's stratosphere is pretty impressive. So definitely very interested in him. LDU, I think if we get any indication that the North midfield rotation is going to be shrunk, LDU is very enticing. I have a feeling it's going to be some hard talks for North this off-season around the way that they prepare for games, I guess. Like in 5 years, they have not once been a decent defensive side and haven't improved. There's a lot of very casualness. There's a casualness about North, which I think they'll want to get out of their game. Dacos, I still think Dacos is going to go gangbusters and start averaging 130 at some point. So no Collingwood in opening round. He's probably the expensive guy that I start. Sarong gets attention every week, so it'll be interesting to see whether or not he's startable. Obviously, Sarong, Brayshaw, and Young are not all going to be premium type scorers in the same midfield, so probably can't start 3 of them. I have a feeling that Brayshaw is the one that's scoring is going to drop the most because he's the most versatile. But we'll see. And then Callahan, natural progression, and he's the man in the Giants midfield. Very interested. Hayden Young, first pick next year. In the rucks, I've got Cherry and Nick Bryan. I think Cherry's going to be underpriced because of that 3-week hamstring niggle, and then Nick Bryan coming off an ACL. Draper potentially leaving as well. He's going to be very enticing. TDK as well is going to be very interesting at St Kilda. I think he's going to be cheaper than he was this year, which is all a bit interesting. And then forwards, Sheasel and Treloar. Treloar is going to get the no-play discount, and Sheasel obviously playing full-time midfield. I think he could go 120 next year playing full-time midfield, if I'm going to be frank. So, yeah, that's all I have for this episode. Thank you guys for watching. You probably won't see me until the team picker is released in December. So I'm wishing you all the very best for, the rest of the year, and I look forward to seeing you all in December. Best of luck if your team is playing in finals. I'm personally going for Fremantle. Do it for Fifey, all that sort of good stuff. Also, everyone's going to be going for them given they've never won one. But yeah, best of luck to your teams if they're playing in finals, and in Supercoach finals if you're playing that. I'll see you in December. Bye, guys.